Hello? Hello? Okay, good. This thing is working. Hi, you can call me John. John Teeter. It's not my real name, of course, but the others have started using it, so I guess I will too. Now look, I'm not technically supposed to be doing this. After the first time in 2001, everything became very restricted. They just kept adding rules and regulations for how we're supposed to operate in a world line, but the truth is you can never go back. You can never go back without some level of influence, some level of change. It's just the nature of time itself. It's a curious thing, too, because when you consider the expansive and potentially unending universe, we are but a small, insignificant speck. We shouldn't mean anything. We shouldn't, because we are just dust in an infinite sea of dust. But for some reason, an infinitely small speck of dust will have an infinite realm of possibility in an infinite number of world lines. Sorry, I'm not here to philosophize. What I'm trying to say is that no matter how little of an impact I try and make, I will inevitably cause some level of change, and that can be a very, very dangerous thing to do. And this is why there are rules. This is also why I am going to have to break some of those rules. Okay, most of those rules. This is why they don't like intensely moralistic individuals, of course, but again, I digress. The reason I'm here is because I am looking for a book. It is titled The Adam and Eve Story by Chan Thomas. The book, in and of itself, is kind of rare, but the copy I am in search of in particular has some handwritten notes in it, making it a one of one. It has been virtually impossible to track down. This is my third trip now, and all I have is a name and a single page. The name is Lee Whitman. I don't know if you've ever heard of a Lee Whitman before. Probably not. We don't know much, if anything, about him. All that we have is a page torn from a copy of the Adam and Eve story. It contains a series of notes and mathematical equations that are of, let's just say that they are of great interest to those whom I work for. There are, of course, plenty of Lee Whitmans in the world, but none of them seem to fit the profile of the figure whom we're looking for. The nature of the notes and equations imply that the man is highly intelligent and highly educated in mathematics. Now, I'm not entirely sure why such an intelligent person would take the time to write such detailed notes on the blank space of a book that is, by and large, unheard of. Chan Thomas isn't the most reputable of scientists, and the Adam and Eve story is considered more a loose rendering of facts rather than a true, factual research document. The book did, however, garner a lot of attention in 2013, when the CIA released in their files a sanitized and censored version. This led many conspiratorially minded individuals to wonder if there was any merit to the claims in the book, and if the CIA was trying to hide something. As I have discovered, these claims are largely untrue. However, when paired with the notations from Mr. Whitman, things become a little bit more complicated. I can't explain everything yet, as there are still many things I myself don't know. The original John Teeter, he spoke of a world full of famine and war and destruction, and considering that the Adam and Eve story is one built around this cyclical nature of cataclysms, I can only assume that this world is headed in that direction as well. We are born, we build, we conquer, we fall. That is humanity in a nutshell, isn't it? But it's not always our fellow humans that reset the cycle. Sometimes it's just the nature of the world, nature of the universe, really, to live, to die, to live again. A very religious thought, isn't it? Repent, sin, repent again. Sorry. There I go again. Look, I'm not just here for the book. There was something else that I actually did want to talk about. The book is important, though, so remember that. And it is actually the whole reason I'm here in the first place. I've been contacting independent booksellers in the southeast United States, seeing if any of them might have a copy of the book or ever sold one. It's a tedious process, and most of the people who own these shops are so old they don't care to use their computers or emails, so I have to go to them in person. I did get a response back from an older woman who owns a bookshop in Georgia, so I go there to check it out, and it's this really aged brick building, part of the downtown strip. Everything about it is old and musky and covered in dust. It was late evening, and the lights were beginning to cast a sickly yellow. I knew that brick-and-mortar bookstores are on the downtrend, and I could tell this one wasn't going to be doing any better. Most of the books were akin to thrift store trade-ins or old encyclopedias. Nothing popular or new seemed to sit on the shelves, and while that was bad for business, this was actually exactly what I was looking for. Now, despite the decrepit state of the whole shop, there was one other person browsing the shelves. She was younger, just a few years younger than me, maybe 24, 25. She was she was quite beautiful, with a slender frame and bright blonde hair. I caught a glimpse of her face as she was browsing the books, paying me no mind, of course. She had soft brown eyes that almost seemed red when the light caught them. When she reached atop a stack of books to pick one out, I noticed something strange, interesting, maybe. Her left hand, her ring finger in particular, was white, like porcelain white, and it was just the one. Now, I didn't get the best of look at it, but it struck me as odd because, well, it was odd. Sure, people have prosthetics, and maybe it was just a fashion thing. After all, she was wearing a black bucket hat and black clothes from top to bottom. Black jacket, black t-shirt, black pants, black tennis shoes, you get it. She certainly did not look like the type of person to be in such an old, dusty bookstore. I browsed around for a bit longer, occasionally glancing in the direction of the girl, but she just kept looking at the books. At some point, an older woman, the one who had emailed me, came and said hello. She was quite pleasant, and I explained to her my situation and the book that I was looking for. She smiled and said that she would have a look in the back. I took that as code for she probably didn't have it, and if she did, she had no idea where it was. Outside of the encyclopedia sets on the shelves, there appeared to be no intentional order to the genres or titles or stacks that were littered about the place. As I waited, I thought that I had heard something. I wasn't sure what it was exactly, but the sound felt familiar. It was deep and distant, this rising whine. And I realized it was a tornado siren. I turned just in time to see the girl's head jerk up, and she whirled around, our eyes locking for a fraction of a second. But in that moment, I saw pure fear. Whatever books she had in her hands, she dropped them and bolted out of the store in such a hurry that she knocked down 2 other stacks of books that had been on the floor. She was there and gone so fast that I was left with only the resounding ring of the doorbell and a mess on the floor. The older woman hobbled back into the main room. She looked at the pile of books and then towards the door. "She's gone, yes?" she asked, looking at me. "Yeah," I said, very much confused, and I knelt down and began picking up the books. She heard the siren, and she just ran. Is everything okay?" "Good," the woman nodded. Good. I'm glad she had ample warning this time." "Warning?" I asked. I don't think running is going to help in the event of a tornado." "It's not for tornadoes," she said, as if I should have known better, as if it was just common knowledge that everyone knew that the tornado siren wasn't for tornadoes. She didn't look at me. She looked past me. And she spoke. She said, "It's for the long men." The long men? I'm not really sure what she's talking about. But she, again, seems to ignore me and holds up a copy of the Adam and Eve story. "I found your book," she says, in a somewhat chipper tone despite the moment. And I was momentarily distracted by the fact that in her hand she had the very thing that I was looking for. The cover was half torn, most of the corners curled and folded. However, when I opened it up, I found that there weren't any significant notes or writing within. It was useless. "You said the long men." I tried again, my attention back to the tornado siren that was still ringing in the distance. "Don't you mean like tall men?" "They're not necessarily tall," she said with a shrug of her shoulders, "but they are long. Now, I'm sure that information is as clarifying to you as it is to me." "I'm not really sure I understand," I said. "They started appearing about a year ago," the woman said. "People best watch out for them. right? Scary things they are. Someone or some animal always goes missing when they're around. That girl there, the one that was just here, she's most afraid of them. She thinks that they are after her. Are you not afraid of them? I ask. I'm old, the woman said flatly, and with no emotion to it. Not really afraid of much else but living too long. I swear, these old joints just aren't cut out for it anymore. I finished stacking the books up and took another look at the copy of the Adam and Eve story. It was frustrating. Dead end after dead end. And at this point, the truth is that I wasn't really sure what else to do. There's only one copy in the entire world line, and I have no idea where it is. So I thanked the woman for her time, and I left the shop. I can't tell you how eerie it was to step out onto that empty street. There was only a car or two parked along the strip. The sky was dark and gray, like it was just about to rain. The rolling whine of the siren wasn't loud enough to be obnoxious, but it was still there, like the sound of the wind or the crunch of leaves, but it was just unnatural. It strikes an immediate sense of unease and warning. I wasn't quite sure what the bookshop lady had meant by the long men. It sounded equal parts weird and unsettling as well as potentially vulgar. I'll tell you this, though. It is somehow an apt description. I was making my way up the darkening town to reach my car when I saw it. It was darker than black. It made the shadows look bright. And yes, it was long. Not tall, exactly, because it was hunched over. Its body was thin, more like a pole than a torso. Its arms were long, maybe twice its actual size, but the way that they were bent, the way it moved, it was wrong. Now, I know that that's not very helpful, but it's true. This creature, this thing, it was not right. The way its legs bent, the way its body seemed to float and swing between its limbs as they snaked out around it. Its fingers were long, maybe 3 times the size of a regular person's. They would coil up and then extend with each step. I was frozen when I saw it. I just couldn't reconcile what I was seeing, and even now it just doesn't seem real. It can't be real, and yet in my heart I know it is. It looked at me, you know, and its eyes were white dots. They didn't blink. They didn't move. They were just empty white dots. I am not at all ashamed to say that I ran, and I ran as fast as I possibly could. Looking back, I don't think that it chased me. Maybe it wasn't interested, but when I looked back a few blocks away, I could see nothing, no sign of it at all. I'm back now, back in my time, in my world line, but I can't stop thinking about it, about what I saw. I've traveled to a dozen different world lines for various missions and reasons, and never once have I seen anything so strange or wrong or paranormal. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm afraid. I'm not sure how you're going to take all of this. Obviously, it's your job to listen to people whom others might consider crazy. Maybe you don't think that I'm crazy, but for some reason, I still feel the need to emphasize that I know what I saw. To do what I do, I have undergone a near infinite number of screenings, and all of them have come back neurotypical. I'm not making this up. The problem is that I still have to find that book. And so when I return, I will do my best to investigate. I decided to leave this for you specifically, Mr. Reed, because you felt like the right person to tell. You're not just looking for stories. You're looking for ways to protect people from them. I guess my advice is that if you ever hear a tornado siren on a day when there are no storms, you should probably just run. Anyway, I'll be in touch.